As soon as I got in the club, I was like, I need security footage. And then he was like, oh, no, everyone's going to see me fall. And I was like, I'm doing Rogan tomorrow. He was like, oh, no. I was like, 10 million people at least.
Shane Gillis made his 15th appearance on JRE this week with his partner in crime, Matt McCusker, and like all of his appearances on Papa Rogan's podcast, it was an absolute banger. And it's an interesting time for Shane at the moment. He's got a lot going on this month, which is what I'm going to cover in today's video, from his recent Bud Light sponsorship to the rumoured Super Bowl ad this weekend, and don't forget he's hosting SNL on the 24th, 5 years after they sacked him, which helped to elevate his profile even further. But here's the thing, Shane owes a lot to Joe Rogan. Like I said, this is his 15th appearance on the podcast in just 2.5 years. That's right, it took Rogan 2 years after Shane's SNL sacking to have him on JRE, and since then, Shane has become a regular. And there's an unfolding tension brewing between the two of them, which I first noticed in his last appearance from episode 2074, just recently in December. So I'm going to break it all down. As usual, I'll play you some clips from the podcast and explain my thoughts and opinions along the way. And I'm going to play you guys one clip in particular that shows just how different Shane is to Rogan and his comedy brats, so make sure you stick around for that one towards the end. But just before we get into all of that, if you haven't subscribed yet, sort that out, get on board. We're pushing for 110,000 subs. I drop a few videos per week, keeping you updated on everything happening in the podcast universe. So a massive shout out to my regulars who always turn up for me and help to grow the channel. You guys are the best.
There's bears in the forest in certain parts of Europe, I know for sure. I know they have brown bears out there. But there's definitely some, Russia has some crazy.
It's just in my brain.
What is that?
I was like, you drink enough and start remembering Spanish. I was like, oso.
For a bear.
I think that might be bear.
It is.
Nice.
It's actually the new vodka.
Yeah,
that's
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's Bert's bear?
Tom and Bert have a vodka.
Oso
That's
vodka.
called Oso?
Porosos.
Oh, what a great name.
Hell yeah.
Perfect.
So Tom and Bert aren't the only ones with a drink to sell you. Shane Gillis recently signed a sponsorship deal with Bud Light and went for a tour at their facility in New Orleans, and the narrative being thrown around is that Shane saved Bud Light after their train wreck of an attempt to appeal to the LGBT+ community with their Dylan Mulvaney partnership last year. As a result of the controversy, Bud Light went into full damage control as they desperately sought to win back their base, even though they clearly had forgotten who their base was, or maybe just fell asleep at the wheel. Either way, they needed to clean up their image as a blue-collar working America brand instead of a bunch of suits virtue signaling to a community that never cared about them in the first place. So it started with a massive multi-year deal with the UFC valued at over $100 million per year, and then a sponsorship with Shane Gillis, which people are speculating will see him starring in a Super Bowl commercial over the weekend. And oh my god, if we see Shane in a Super Bowl ad, that would be absolutely wild. I mean, just imagine the headlines from all the usual suspects. Bud Light uses transphobic, homophobic, something else phobic comedian in Super Bowl ad. And then Matt and Shane sitting on a couch doing their MSSP podcast, just laughing about how angry all of them are. And speaking of Matt and Shane's podcast, if you missed it, 2 weeks ago they had Cole Beasley on, and towards the end of the episode, Cole asked Shane about what kind of money he's making from podcasting and comedy, but then he brought up that he saw Shane wearing a Bud Light beanie and asked what was going on with all of that, to which Shane responded with his signature awkward style.
What's this podcast gig like, though?
What's this?
Yeah, how's, you know,
It's pretty fun.
you get, I mean, what's the money like? Do you get anything off of it somehow? Some
Money's
way?
thick.
How's that work?
We get like
$1 billion.
we get so much money.
Yeah, it's still solid money. It's not bad.
No, it's great. I'm not saying it's
Peace
not.
Peace Squad's not great, but you know.
No, yeah. I'll tell you after.
I love
I
that.
love it.
Love that. All right.
Actually,
I'd give this up.
Comedy
for
money
P-Squad.
should be good now.
Peace Squad
though.
would be nice.
P Squad would be so sick.
Got a big Netflix thing now.
Comedy money's good. Yeah,
It's working out.
the money is good.
I saw you with a Bud Light beanie on. I didn't take you for one of those, but
Brother,
what's
I'm glad
going on?
you
there?
asked.
What's going on there?
Bud Light rules. Bud Light's back, dude. We're back.
How's it back?
I'll tell you after.
All right.
All right, that's enough
you know
of this.
So that was from 2 weeks ago, don't forget, but there's definitely still some tension there. Not everyone's convinced. Even on Shane's Instagram, where he announced his new partnership after a tour of Bud Light's facilities, not everyone was happy. Along with all the messages of support and a few cracker jokes, people were saying stuff like, Bud Light trying so hard not to be gay, effing Shane Gillis is trans. Your daily reminder, folks, everyone is for sale. Oh, Shane won't like that one. Paying people that we like doesn't cover up for their sins. F sellout, glad I had no idea who you were and never wasted a minute of my life watching you. I hope you tank. Wow. So some people have already made up their mind about Bud Light and cannot be swayed otherwise, but this was easily my favorite reply. Where'd you get that Bud Light, Danny? Sorry. That cracks me up every time. Honestly, I'd probably rather a grilled cheese sandwich than a Bud Light. But anyway, on this week's appearance on JRE, Shane's new Bud Light sponsorship came up a few times, and it was literally the very first thing that they discussed.
Boys.
Yes.
Salute.
Hey.
Bud Light came all the way
dude.
back.
Cheers.
They
Bud Light,
Cheers
baby.
to water.
They came all the way back. You can put down 18 of these. There's no way you have it.
Responsibly.
There's no way you're not driving. It's
True.
You, for some reason, you can do it though. I don't understand. I've never seen anybody consume beer the way you
I can
can.
drink beer.
Bud Light came all the way back. UFC, Shane Gillis.
Let's go.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go.
For the
Yeah.
pros now.
I mean, that's a good move. Like that guy that we met, the CEO.
Yeah.
he's got it together.
Yeah.
He gets it.
But you're the
Good
CEO
dude.
now. I thought you're
Just
the
in commercials.
I knew you guys were going to make fun of me.
No, how's that
Come
making
on, man.
fun?
I'm so happy.
It wouldn't have happened without this.
Listen, I'm so
Yeah.
happy. I'm so happy. It just made so much sense. You never let them go. You never bailed on them.
So a couple of interesting things there in the first 2 minutes of the podcast. Obviously, Rogan's happy for Shane. It's a massive payday for his buddy. And anyone who's been following Shane for 5 minutes knows that he's a legit Bud Light ambassador. But I found it curious that Rogan said that he met the CEO as well, and then Shane said it wouldn't have happened without this, presumably in reference to Joe's podcast. I think either Rogan met the CEO through the UFC partnership, or he helped to broker the deal and get Shane on board. And I think Shane thanking Joe by saying his podcast played a massive part means that Bud Light obviously likes the fact that Shane drinks 20 of them on Protect Our Parks episodes. Maybe that's how they discovered that Shane was a Bud Light guy. Either way, it's clear that Joe played a role in getting Shane the sponsorship, which again, I think is fantastic. Good luck to him, he deserves it. But then it kept coming up again and again and again. And I started to get the sense that there's a bit of competition going on. Let me show you what I mean, okay? Almost an hour into the podcast, Shane tells the story of how he went to Bud Light's facilities in New Orleans, and he brings up their beast horses called Clydesdales, but Rogan, being the animal lover that he is, quickly became obsessed with just how big they are.
Matthew, would you please hand me a Bud Light?
Absolutely.
Responsibly.
Dude. Absolutely.
Wow. What a beer, dude. I met the Clydesdales.
Did you really?
You had to meet horses?
I had to meet some horses. And then I got really responsible. It was in New Orleans. I got extremely responsible.
Around
that
the
night.
horses? Around the horses?
No, and then I called my dad, and he didn't answer. It was late. And I was like, I met horses. And I'll tell you, they're big everywhere, if you know what I'm talking about.
Big
Distracting.
Horse cat?
Distracting.
There it is. Wow, that thing is huge.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Look at the size of that horse. You're a big dude.
Yeah, that horse.
That's like maybe people need to recognize. Like, how tall are you?
I'm 6'3".
So he's 6'3". Look how big that horse is. That horse's back is like 5'10".
Yeah, it's
That's insane.
it's crazy.
Nuts.
How much bigger are they than a regular horse?
So then after Rogan's done frothing over the horses, he actually cracks a pretty funny joke. But now that Shane's a company man, well, he didn't like it so much.
Why are they so
yeah.
big?
I'd love to know.
Yeah, I mean, like, what they must have breed them. That's
Horse
part of their
genetics-
business is they keep horses.
Yeah, they have like a.
They didn't shoot any of them after everything went
How
south.
They would never shoot the horses, dude.
I'm just wondering. I mean, that's what happens when people go poor.
No,
They
would
shoot
never
horses.
Start eating them.
How dare you?
Dude,
Not my company.
They
dude.
fired like a lot of people. I was wondering if they shot any horses.
they own the rights to diesel engines.
Bro, I know it's funny. It's such an expensive joke, dude.
Come on, man. You brought Bud Light
Look.
back.
Okay, I'm going to come back to why this is a problem for Shane in a moment, but I want to show you guys this next clip first, where Shane gives it back to Rogan when he brings up one of his own sponsors.
You don't
That
use a
is-
VPN?
No.
You should use a VPN.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you should use one.
That's a great idea.
Express
actually.
VPN. Easy.
Yeah.
One click. It's a sponsor. It's
Nice.
Easy to use.
Ooh, do you think I can use it to bet somewhere else, maybe? Not just. I don't know.
I know that
Oh, this is your
people
sponsor.
use VPNs.
I'm going to use
I
it
think
to
there are
bet
sponsors.
somewhere else.
There are sponsors.
I know people have used it to collect Pokemons.
I think there are sponsors too, actually.
Yeah.
I love them. I'll never bet somewhere else.
So they're obviously just having a laugh, but Shane was definitely giving it back to Rogan after his jab about shooting the horses, and the fact that ExpressVPN also sponsor Matt and Shane just makes the whole thing even funnier. But here's the thing, you could probably tell that Shane was low-key getting frustrated, but I don't actually think he was frustrated at Rogan. See, most of these guys have all these sponsors, and they can't keep track of them because they're not really media trained, they're just comedians, right? And I think Shane's quickly realizing that this sponsorship with Bud Light is going to be a little bit different and more difficult than he thought it would. He clearly just wants to drink beer and play Xbox, but now he's got to act like a responsible drinker. He can't take jabs at his corporate partner anymore, and when someone like Rogan cracks a joke about them laying off staff and shooting horses to survive, he can't laugh along and join in because they're paying him to make them look good. So, for someone who just wants to hang with his buddies, have a drink, talk trash, do some podcasts, and work on his stand-up comedy, having to bow down to this corporate sponsor like this could become a problem, especially considering how off-the-cuff these kinds of conversations can be. But I don't necessarily think it's a problem right now. He's obviously still getting used to having such a big brand deal, which I reckon is probably worth over $10 million a year, but obviously I know nothing, I'm just guessing. However, if he does get another couple of big brands on his side from other industries, that's when I think he could start to really screw himself over. Because all of a sudden, he's creating these black spots that he can't joke about anymore, and you can tell just from watching those clips just now, he hates the fact that he's always representing the company now. I mean, he's effectively an ambassador, right? So my view is, I think it's great that Shane's monetized that relationship given he's a legitimate fan of Bud Light, but if he's not careful, he could find himself slowly turning into Tom and Bert, who shill everything under the sun and always have to be in corporate mode. Shane's whole vibe is laid back and carefree, so hopefully he doesn't end up selling out completely and end up like his buddies who are basically clowns for sale. Now, that isn't the source of the growing tension between Rogan and Shane. We saw a little glimpse of it with the horses joke and the ExpressVPN comeback a couple of minutes later, but that's mostly just friends joking around and having a laugh. I think there is something a little bit deeper going on here, and I've spoken about it in the past. It's this idea that Shane's profile is growing so quickly and to such extraordinary heights that Rogan almost needs Shane now more than Shane needs Rogan. And I think it's starting to bug Rogan. For some reason, people seem to think that Joe is this really humble guy who's down to earth and in touch with the common man, but nothing could be further from the truth. Joe has an ego the size of an elephant. He just manages to hide it well because he's been sitting at the top of the mountain for over a decade now. Don't get me wrong though, I think he definitely wants his friends to succeed and he helps them out wherever he can, no arguments there, but I've noticed that the way he does it, it's always so they remain under his wing. He wants to be known as the guy who helps out his buddies, just as long as they bend and kiss the ring. When have you ever seen any of the Brogan comedy brats go on JRE and actually challenge him? Never. They all go on there, they plug their latest grift, they praise Joe for everything he does for the community, and they pretend he's the smartest guy they know. Shane threatens that ecosystem because he's now achieving what none of those other guys could. Think about it. None of Rogan's close buddies have hosted SNL. And I'm not talking about Chappelle, Bill Burr, and Louis C.K. I'm talking about Schultz, Tom, Burt, and all those guys, that inner comedy brat circle. Shane not only got fired from SNL before he even started, but now he's a couple of weeks away from hosting it again. Even SNL are trying to get in on his popularity at the moment.
I know you have a lot of friends who have worked at Saturday Night Live. Would you ever be interested in hosting the show?
I've said before, I will give up my tour. I have a TV show that when we get back that I'm going to do. I'll give it all up, and I'll be a guest. I'll be a cast member for a year for the experience. I'll get some numbers for them. You can throw shit at me. I don't care. But like, I would love the experience. Guest hosting terrifies me. Like, hosting terrifies me. That, I know you have to do it if they offer it to you, but that terrifies me. I'd rather swim with sharks in open water for television than go out and have to deliver a monologue on SNL. But you don't have to pay me. I'll come out one season, be a cast member. I'd love it. And I'll work my ass off, and I won't complain. I'll slow down my drinking, or I'll pump it up, whatever you want. Yeah, I can love SNL.
So in my opinion, that 100% threatens Rogan. You've got to remember he has an ongoing bitterness towards the Hollywood establishment for turning their backs on him, and even though SNL is based out of New York, they're still part of that same comedy establishment. SNL used to be the top of the comedy food chain. What Rogan has managed to do quite successfully is carve out his own little area in the sandbox. That's what the comedy mothership was always about. It was meant to be the foundation for an independent comedy scene away from the bright lights of Hollywood, where comedians like Rogan, who were rejected by the establishment, could create their own comedy ecosystem, and he's killing it. There's no doubt that he's successfully challenged the status quo and created something out of nothing. And then you have Shane Gillis. He's got his finger in every comedy pie at the moment. He's back in with SNL. He's got the Netflix deals. He's living in Austin and regularly appears on JRE. And now he's got this new brand deal with a multinational corporation in Bud Light. He is living the dream that Rogan always wanted. Shane is the comedian at the moment, whereas there are still people out there that have no idea that Joe Rogan is actually a comedian. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said I'd show you a clip that proves just how far apart Matt and Shane are from Rogan's other comedy buddies, so let me give you some context first.
The people that are writing them, you're getting a disproportionate amount of failures. If you're trying to get like a control study of the population, general population, if you're doing a pharmaceutical study, you have a bunch of old people, a bunch of young people, different walks of life. You're going to do it right. You do it with a bunch of biological variability. The variability of people that are wanting to comment negatively online is like, you can find those people. They don't have this together.
That's
They're
the people with
mess.
dizziness.
Some of them are kids.
Just ignore them.
It's a nonsense way to communicate.
It is nonsense.
You don't know who they are. You don't know what their background is. You don't know whether their opinion is valid. You're accepting negativity, and human beings have a natural propensity to look towards negative things because your brain is programmed to look for intruders and dangerous things.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's take a look at how differently Matt and Shane handle the exact same conversation.
There's bros that bombed for 10 straight years.
Yeah, that's not good. There's a lot of fighters like that, too. They just always get knocked out. Yeah, that's not good. You should find another thing to do.
Yeah, true.
Or you're just not going to be good at anything. That's not also possible. There's certain people that just never get good at anything. They're really good at leaving comments on YouTube.
They actually are good at that, and I'll tell you what, those work.
Get you.
Those are effective.
Yeah, those dudes will absolutely shred.
Like a week up for me.
Yeah. I try to do like a thing where I'm like, I understand you're feeling. In my head, I'll be like, he's just very upset right now. But yeah, they'll get you thinking like it's not a thing. It's a bad. Although they're like a part of the whole YouTube ecosystem. Where like if you catch enough bad ones, sometimes you go, maybe I can think about something.
Yeah, maybe I am an asshole.
Yeah, it's like maybe I'll think about something. Or I don't know. It's tough because you don't want to be like nobody can tell me shit. But then sometimes you'll read them and you're like, I don't have to deal with this right now.
The thing is, you don't know who you're talking
my children.
to. You could be talking to the biggest moron that works at 7-Eleven. You could be talking to the biggest moron.
Of course.
And it's just like, you're like, you, that's not true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just a waste of time.
Geez, man, what's wrong with working at 7-Eleven? Seriously, Rogan's got to be careful. I'll tell you what, he's obsessed with crapping on working class people with an opinion, and he's starting to sound more and more like the Hollywood elites that he's been bagging for the last 12 years. But did you see how different Matt and Shane's take on negative comments was? See, these guys know. They get it. Matt nailed it when he said that it's all part of the YouTube ecosystem, and if you see a few of the same negative comments over and over again, then maybe it should make you stop and think. And Shane agreed with that. I've covered in a previous video how Matt and Shane are aware of what happened to Brendan Schaub and the subreddit dedicated to hating him. Here's a really quick recap for you.
I watched that whole incel documentary about.
The guy that made that a documentary about.
Yeah, so I know exactly
job?
what's going on in that subreddit. So I watched that documentary, and then I went to the subreddit. I'm like, whoa, dude, there's like a whole space where you can just act this.
Whole subculture of these people.
There's like a small city worth
14,000. Yeah,
a small city's worth of people, like a rural town's worth of people who are dedicated towards like watching your every move. The sin they're punishing him for is taking that like kind of elitist attitude towards his fan base. He was kind of like, you guys are losers. I'm killing it. They were like, dude, we'll hive mind make fun of you. It's like, dude, I would instantly cave.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I'll quit. You guys I'm done.
This is the major difference between Matt, Shane, and guys like Tom, Bert, and Schultz. They have this high-level awareness of how powerful a backlash can be, and if you don't listen to the feedback, I mean, look at what's happening right now with Tom and Bert's vodka announcement video. They must be absolutely gutted by the negative response to their new baby, especially after it was supposedly 4 years in the making. It's honestly wild how out of touch they are compared to Matt and Shane, who basically offered up a clinic on how to deal with haters without coming off as arrogant tools. So there's a lot to digest there, but there's just so much going on at the moment. I can't wait for the Super Bowl and also to see if Bud Light put out an ad with Gillis in it. If they do, he's going to be a very, very busy man. Anyway, that's my breakdown of episode 2098 of JRE with Matt and Shane. I hope you enjoyed it. Big shout out to my regulars. You guys are the best. You guys always turn up for me. So if you haven't subscribed yet, consider jumping on board so you get all my uploads right there in your feed. That's it from me. I'll catch you in the next one.
Have you ever tried to make your own pizza? You ever do the pizza oven thing?
I worked at a restaurant. We were doing that. I'm not good at it.
But now you have a nice yard. Like maybe you get a little pizza
oven would be nice.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm not doing anything.
I can see you with a ladle of sauce. Throwing the fresh mozzarella.
I'm never gonna
the
change.
Basil.
I've accepted.
Push it in there.
I've accepted who I am. I'm
No
gonna
folic acid.
play Xbox and DoorDash Chipotle, and then go to the show. That's it.
Well, that's
my
another
schedule
option.
every day.
That's a solid option.
That is kind of.
The show's in 8 hours. So soon. That's cutting into all my doing nothing.